All right, I think we are here.
Really? Good.
All right, if someone is out there, please let me know. Yep, I have all green check marks, so I am going to. Ooh, look at you, Queen.
I just got a notification that JCX Fishing is live now. So.
Okay. So, I'm not sure what's going on, but we are live. I guess we'll just continue with this broadcast and
Sure.
go from there. Or would you like me to start another one?
Hey, whatever you want to do, man. It's your show.
Well, all right. Chris is up. We got people coming on now. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is. I apologize for the issues we had earlier. I found out what it was, and we got it fixed. Tonight's special guest is Jay Angel, who is the owner and podcaster of Let's Talk Fishing podcast. A little bit about Jay. He was, ever since he was a kid, he'd always fished and fished obsessively. And that led into writing articles for the outdoors at a local newspaper. And then after that, he started, jumped up his game to a Illinois-based fishing magazines. And he began guiding and dabbling in the tournaments. And now, like I said earlier, he is the owner and chief podcaster of Let's Talk Fishing. Welcome, Jay. Thank you very much for hanging in with us.
Thank you, John. It's an honor to be part of your podcast, and congratulations on your new podcast.
Thank you, sir. We've talked a little bit, and you were one of the first one of the first to interview me as a fisherman, and I thought what an honor it would be if you would allow me to do the same for yourself. So
it's also an honor for me. Actually, it was Chris Boring who suggested you. And I said, if Chris is going to endorse you, I'm going to have you on my show. I had you on my show. You did a great job, so I had you on my show again.
Yes, I greatly appreciate that. Every chance I get to talk about fishing, I enjoy. So you do it a lot more than I do. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Well, I'm living down here in southern Louisiana, and it's about an hour drive to go fishing anywhere. And if you don't have a boat, you really can't stand on. There aren't a whole lot of opportunities for bank fishermen in Louisiana. We have things like water moccasins and alligators and very, very mean vegetation that has all kinds of thorns on it. So, I kind of got frustrated with that. So I looked at my wife one morning and I said, I'm bored. I'm going to start a podcast. And she looked at me and she said, okay, how are you going to do that? I said, watch me. I did some research, and within 2 days, I did my first recording of a podcast, and I never looked back. As I've been an outdoor communicator for, almost 25 years now, and it's just very natural for me, just like you, to talk fishing. I love it. I love everything about it. And what I really, really love about being an outdoor communicator is I get to meet the other fishermen. And the fishermen I've met, like yourself, Chris Boring, Rob Welsh, and I could mention 50 others. They're just great people. And, just doing the podcast has really increased the quality of my life. I get to fish with guys that I never would have been eligible to fish with before. And, I get to partner with companies, and I get to know the people who own the companies. I just can't say enough about it. I love podcasting. I love everything about it.
Excellent. Thank you. We spoke a little bit earlier today and off and on throughout the last couple of months. And one of the things you like to do is is wacky rig. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes. I started wacky rigging back in like 1998 with a good friend of mine in Illinois by the name of Mike Norris. I took him fishing on the lake that I guided on, and Mike just took me to school. I was using a 10-inch ribbon tail worm, and I was targeting creek channels. And Mike said, Jay, it's post spawn. And I said, yeah. He said, I know you caught fish. I know you caught huge fish doing this during pre-spawn. But now the fish are not in. The water temperature is 72 degrees. The fish just aren't in the deep water. So it's time to adjust. So he put on a Bass Pro Shop Sticko and a size 4 octopus hook, and I casted it out there. And within a couple about half an hour, I hooked into something huge, and it was a lake record smallmouth bass. That one fish launched my guide career, because I took it in. I took pictures of it. I took it into the bait shop before I released it. They took pictures of it. Next thing I know, they had a life-size picture in the bait shop of me holding that smallmouth bass, and it said J Angel's Guide Service. My phone started ringing off the wall, man. After that, I was hooked. And what I like about the weightless wacky rig, particularly for guiding, it has one hook. One hook means there is less chance of me being hooked by one of my clients, and that happened a lot. But I do weightless wacky rigging a little bit differently than most people do. I like to do it in very shallow water, and I like to use a small hook. By a small hook, I'm talking a size 2 or a size 4 hook. Now, Vector Hooks actually has a wacky hook now. I bought a bunch of size 2s in that, and as soon as I get better from this health condition I have right now, I'm gonna take that out and give it a try. I like to use monoline because it sinks more slowly, and I like to use light line because it sinks more slowly. And also, I don't use the fancy stuff. I don't put an O-ring on my wacky rig. I go right through it. And yes, you don't get to use a whole lot of it, but as far as I'm concerned, that's a business when you're fishing. And also, I use different kinds of wacky worms, different companies' wacky worms, for different situations. If I'm fishing in 2 to 4 feet of water, I like the Cajun Baton Junior because it's the slowest sinking thing I can find. Slowest sinking worm. It just kind of floats down. If I'm fishing in 1 foot to 3 feet of water, that's what I use. When I go 5 foot to 7 foot, I'll use the 48, which is made by Missile Baits.
Okay.
Because it sinks more quickly, And one thing that Derek Hudnall taught me that I really like to use, particularly around here, I didn't have to do this down or up in Illinois, is I cast to the shadow side of the tree, because there's so many trees in these waters. We have cypress trees everywhere down here, and I was going all the way around the tree when I only had to target a foot and a half of it.
Right. I got a comment here from Jeff Hendo Henderson.
Sure.
He said Jay had my son on and did a great job with him and great patience. So
Goose is a good kid, man. I really like Goose. For those of you guys who don't know, Goose is 13 years old, and he has autism, and he is going to fish his first tournament ever with a lady named Violet Talley. Violet Talley, I've had her on my show probably 4 times, and she is an encyclopedia of fishing information. I mean, when I talk about a certain kind of reel that Daiwa has, she knows the model numbers, and sometimes Daiwa might have 3 different suffixes for a reel that tells you 3 different attributes of it. She has them all memorized. I don't. I just
right.
And I work with Daiwa as well, and I love their reels, but Violet is an up and coming star. She's going to be a superstar. And I'm going to help her get there.
Good. Yeah. I love to see everybody fish. I don't care if they're hearing impaired, sight impaired, or whatever, taking somebody to the outdoors could be the highlight of their lifetime.
Well, one thing I like about that I really like, when several years ago, I also had some other health problems, and I couldn't fish. Well, I was fishing, but I shouldn't have been doing it. And anyways, I went to a tournament, and it was put on by an organization called Mission 6. Mission 6 reaches out to veterans, and takes them fishing. And I was talking to one of the guys. I didn't even know he was involved with Mission 6. And I was telling him about, I can't fish right now. I don't have any money. I'm unemployed. And he said, what are you doing this Saturday? I told him, the same thing I do every day. I'm sitting there watching TV. He said, let me pick you up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to take you fishing. He said, don't worry about anything. If you don't have any equipment, I have equipment. I said, how much is this going to cost? And he said, no, it's Mission 6, man. It's on us. And that meant so much. And for these families who have a child afflicted with autism, if we could just get them out there, like you said, if we could get them out there on the water and just get them out of the drama of their own lives, like you said, that's something they're never going to forget. It's going to mean the world to them.
Exactly.
And just another day on the water for us, we do this all the time.
That's true. As you talk about autism, I see MC Norris from is on here, and he's Fishing for Autism president. So
that is a good man right there. I help out MC whenever I can.
Excellent. But do you have any? I mean, you're from the up north in Illinois, and then you moved down south. Is that because the Air Force brought you there, or?
No, I was actually up. I was living up in Alaska and working up on the Arctic Ocean, which was always one of my aspirations to do. And everything was going fine, and then politics made it impossible for me to live to work up there anymore. They shut down the project, so they said, no, we're not going to drill up in the Arctic Ocean. Well, the company told me that that they'd like to keep me on, but I had to move down to Morgan City, Louisiana. So I moved down there and I continued working offshore for them. And working offshore, you make a lot of money. And then when 2015 came, worldwide, the entire worldwide drilling just slowed down to almost nothing.
Okay.
And they laid off almost all of us, and I couldn't find a job worldwide. I just stayed down here, and then finally, after a year of doing nothing but bartending and fishing on the bank, I went crawling back to the United States Geological Survey, and they gladly took me back, but they took me back in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I'm still here, and I met a great woman down here. We got married, and I'm still here, but there's a lot to do down here for a fisherman. You got bass fishing, you got crappie fishing. You can go out to the coast and catch redfish and trout. It is fun living down here.
Sure. We have a question from Joshua Lyko. Jay,
okay,
hey, he wants to know what your best achievement when it comes to fishing.
Boy, I tell you, I'm going to say teaching my son how to fish. But if you want to talk professionally, I just becoming an outdoor writer, becoming an outdoor communicator. What I like, I talked about this earlier, being an outdoor communicator puts me in a position that people who are great at the top of their game and what they do, they want to tell me how they do it. And I can incorporate that into my own fishing and become even a better fisherman. I'm always want to become a better fisherman. Every time I fish, I want to learn something. But also I get to fish with people who, I wouldn't be eligible to fish with otherwise.
Sure. Yep. We have a couple guests here with us.
Mommy?
X, yeah, from the JCX. And C, Constance, she's driving home from, she had some errands to do. I'll throw her in here also, if you don't mind, Jay. Because she has some questions to ask. Wants to talk to you a little bit.
Well, I don't know about that. Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm trying to get things here, so. Okay.
That's just like you, Mommy.
Yeah, that is Mommy and Jay, yes.
And
Yeah.
And now when
and you, Daddy.
Yes, Rob Welsh just tuned in. He's at Douglas Lake.
Yeah,
I believe you two may know each other a little bit.
I know Rob. Yeah, Rob's a good guy.
Yeah.
Put the beef in here.
He's on his way to, well, he's going to be fishing the BASS Open this weekend.
Yes, Douglas Lake.
So, yeah. So, Constance, do you have any questions for Jay, or want any tips or anything we can get from him to have a successful podcast?
Oh, well, that's all you. I don't. Well, my famous question, I guess, would be, what is your favorite cookie?
My favorite cookie.
Yeah, I'm a baker, so I got to know these things.
I just like straight chocolate chip cookies.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
The old standby.
I'm not very fancy.
Okay. Josh Lyko has a question again.
Sure.
And his question is, being an outdoor writer, what was your favorite article to write that really meant a lot to you?
I really liked writing the articles about wacky rigging. I wrote an article I was very proud of. I didn't win any awards with it. I actually submitted it for a couple, but it was Wacky Rigging, My Spin. And I talked about just what I talked about earlier in the broadcast, about how 5 feet of water is about, back then 5 feet of water was the deepest I would go, and how I would bounce my wacky rig off of trees, and you have to sit there, and it was painfully slow, allowing that worm to go all the way down to the bottom. As soon as it hits the bottom, I just twitch it twice and come up. But also the most important part of this presentation is the small hooks, so it sinks more slowly, light line, and you have to have a great spinning rod. And I did say spinning rod because you're using light line, and the spinning reels, I think they have a much better drag. So if you hook into something big, you can just let it run until it tires itself out. I've even followed big bass around with my boat because I just don't want to lose them. You just have to maintain constant pressure because I'm using a small hook. Now down here, I have gone to a little bit bigger hook. I don't use size 4s anymore. I use size 2s because I was losing fish when they're going through weeds. I was losing fish when they wind themselves around cypress knees. So I went to a little bit bigger hook. And also, Derek Hudnall told me that he uses a size 2, and that man has. For those of you guys who don't know, Derek Hudnall is a Bassmaster Elite Series pro, and he has won so much money wacky rigging. It did my heart good to see that my favorite presentation is used by so many of the big pros. And these are guys who they've won so many.
Sure.
So much
And,
money.
Another Southern man, Rob, well, Southern to me, Rob Welsh wants to know, best tip on fishing for redfish in Cajun country. Now, I don't know if he's talking about live bait, artificial bait. So
my favorite way, most people down here like to use popping corks.
Okay.
And live shrimp underneath the popping cork. I like to just take the popping cork off, cast out with just a live shrimp and a number 2 kale hook. Kale hooks kind of have a weird bend to them, and they're hard to take out. But I just want to catch fish, man. I bring a long pair of pliers and just reach that pliers right in their mouth, yank that hook right out. But if you just let a live shrimp just flit around with a hook in it, it's going to look like a dying shrimp. And anything that's in there is going to grab that. And that also includes pinfish. But the pinfish are going to get out of the pinfish are just a small little bait fish, and they're going to get out of their way if a redfish wants it. So I like the free line. I like the free line shrimp. And the most important part about catching redfish is to find moving water. If you can find moving water going up against some structure like some grass or some wood or something, chances are there's going to be a redfish there.
Jeff Hendo Henderson wants to know what your favorite lake is in Illinois.
Oh, geez. I don't think I would be like asking which one of my kids is my favorite kid. And,
Oh,
I've raised a lot of kids, and my favorite kid was always the one who's behaving the best right now. But if I had to narrow it down to three, it'd be the three lakes that I guided. That would be Shabbona Lake, Heideke Lake, and Evergreen Lake, because I guided all three of those lakes, and I always had a good bite going on for the entire ice-free season. And living up north, it's all about is there ice there or not. As soon as the ice got off the water, I went to the Illinois River. Then I would start going to Lake LaSalle, and as the nuclear power lakes opened up, I start going to the nuclear power lakes and catching incredible amounts of bass and hybrid stripers. And then, of course, the crappie started moving, so I'd go to Shabbona, then I'd go to Evergreen, then I'd go to Heideke Lake, and Heideke Lake then, after it warmed up, became a great lake for casting crankbaits at the rocks. And I would catch either largemouth, smallmouth bass, or walleyes. And every once in a while, I catch a muskie there too, throwing crankbaits at the rocks. But the walleyes there at Heideke were big and mean, and now they're catching crappies. They're over 13 inches long, which is just an incredible size crappie for Illinois. It's not an incredible size crappie for down here, but you really have to look at the fishery when you're evaluating how much that fish is worth.
okay. So you fished pretty much all over the country. Can you give us a little bit of your experiences with fishing up north and down south? Differences, maybe some similarities?
Boy, I tell you, when I was growing up north, and my friends and I were watching the Bassmasters, we used to tell each other that we could compete in that because it's hard to catch fish up here. It's easy to catch fish down south. Well, it makes it look easy to catch fish down south when you're watching the Bassmasters. It really does, because those are the best fishermen in the world. And those guys are lucky, not lucky. They've worked hard enough that now they have the privilege of fishing every day. But when I got down south here, I found out that, my first experience with down south was my dad lived in Florida over on the Harris Lake chain. And I went down there and we started fishing, and I could not believe, one of his best friends was a really big into bass. And he said, yeah, we catch about one fish a mile.
Okay.
What? The fish down south, they spread out because it all is good. It's all good bass cover. Every place you look, it looks like there should be bass there. The cover is much more subtle. There could be a half foot change in the bottom, and the fish could be relating to that. Or if it's real sunny, they're going to be related to shadows. Up north, the cover is much more in your face, like a riprap shoreline that goes on for a mile, and there might be 100 bass on that riprap shoreline. All you have to do is cast a crankbait parallel to it, and just bounce that crankbait off the rocks at different depths. Or bass tend to school up more up north, is what I found. It wasn't unusual for me on a night in June to go out on a riprap shoreline and cast it with wacky rigs with people I was guiding, and catch 25 bass in the first pass. But
Right.
you didn't have the 6, 7, 8 pound bass up north in as big in numbers. The biggest bass I ever caught was 7 pounds.
Okay.
And that was a mile. That was 5 miles from my house in Illinois. And down here you have a much greater chance of catching a fish that big, but the fish are just spread out. That's the biggest difference I found. I do believe it's harder to catch bass down here in the swamps than it ever was in Illinois.
Right. All right. MC Norris says you can fish all year and catch bass in the south. Well, MC, being in the north, you can do the same thing up here. But it's a lot more comfortable down south, I would say. What do you think, Jay?
Yes, it is. And also, if you get to the deep south like I'm in, it's not very comfortable to fish in August. in September because it's just brutally hot, 95 degrees, and it might be 98% humidity. And yes, you can catch bass 12 months out of the year down here, but also the bass down here get pounded 12 months out of the year. So they tend to be quite gun shy, when it comes to biting.
Yeah, I remember probably about 10, 15 years ago, a buddy of mine, we have a couple, we're in the middle of two lakes, Seneca and Cuba Lake up here where we're at. And we went out in Seneca in middle of January in a boat because it doesn't freeze. And we were catching 4 and 5 pound smallies, and we had such a good time. I mean, we only caught like 10 of them, but that was a good couple hours, 2 to 3 hours we had. But you don't, New York, you don't think about being out in the boat in January time frame. So
no, you don't. That would be great. And I always push the open water season because I had a great river right next to me for fishing for walleyes and saugers, and I would go out there and I'd have ice flows hitting my boat as I was jigging for walleyes. I just thought that was fun. I loved it because I had the whole river to myself, and if you're out there in March, every hole's going to have 50 boats on it.
Correct. You mentioned earlier about fishing crankbaits. Is that one of your specialized techniques, favorite techniques, or?
Yeah, it's something I really, really like to do a lot. What I like about crankbaits is you throw it out there and you're burning it, and it's hitting either rocks or the trees. And I like to burn crankbaits as fast as I can reel them. And when something hits it, it's so exciting because the momentum of that lure just stops and it starts going the other way. And that initial thump is what keeps me fishing. That thump is just so exciting. I just love that. I've figured out a couple different ways to do it, especially on riprap shorelines. I really, really like casting those because there were just so many of them in Illinois, and I just got used to fishing them. And there always seems to be fish on them the entire open water season.
Okay, nice. So, is there anything?
One last thing about crankbaits is I could cover so much more water casting a crankbait parallel to the shoreline than I ever could wacky rigging. Wacky rigging is painfully slow. You have to have the fish. You either have to have faith in your spot or you have to have the fish pinpointed in order with a wacky rig, or it's not a very good practice technique. And this is just my opinion. Other guys could think completely different of it. But I like to fish something a little bit faster when I'm actually looking for fish than a wacky rig.
Sure.
And that's why crankbaits are a good search pattern. Kind of like not unlike spinner baits,
Right. So do you use the crankbait primarily as a search bait and then follow up with a wacky rig once you find them, or?
If I find concentrations of fish, what you said is absolutely true. Like if I'm going down a riprap shoreline and I caught 5 fish within a 50-foot area, that'd be a good place to go back and surgically pick off every other fish on that area.
Oh, nice. So, what is your favorite thing about podcasting, would you say?
My favorite thing about podcasting is just meeting the people.
Okay.
I like making friends with the people who I podcast with. I like getting to know them because once I get to know a guy, I can do a great podcast with him. We can joke around. I know how I can get him laughing. I know what kind of questions to ask him to get the best answers. I know what he gets excited about. It's really something. Podcasting is a process, and you're never going to be done with the process. It's a lifelong way of learning how to communicate with people. That's the great challenge of it for me.
Okay.
What makes this guy tick? What really gets this guy excited? And if the guy I'm interviewing is really bouncing things off of me and we're going back and forth very quickly, I believe That makes for a great podcast.
All right. So would you like to talk about your podcast for a little bit?
Well,
what it is, what it's about.
My podcast is called Let's Talk Fishing. I've been doing it for about a year and a half now. I have about 325 podcasts under my belt. And, when I was, right now, I'm sure everybody knows I'm having some very, very serious health issues. I'm going to probably within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to go under the knife and have a very high risk surgery. But, I'm looking forward to getting it done so I can get back to doing 6-7 podcasts a week. I like to put out a lot of podcasts. I like to talk to a lot of people. I like to talk to people from different parts of the United States. That's also interesting to me. Talk to a guy from Minnesota, talk to a guy from California, talk to you from New York. How is bass fishing different in New York than it is in southern Florida? How is bass fishing different out in California than it is in New York, than it is in Illinois, than it is in southern Louisiana? I want to know this. I want to know how it's, like you said, how is it similar? How is it different? What do you do? Guys who have won tournaments, what do you do that sets you apart from the 101 other guys on the Elite Series? What did you do that gave you the edge, that caused you to win against some of the best bass fishermen in the world? That's what I want to know. Yeah, you won. That's fantastic. God, what an achievement. But how'd you do it, dude? How'd you do it? Tell us, because you're never going to have the same conditions ever again. Right. This old idea of I'm not going to tell you when I was catching fish or how I was catching fish. I want to eradicate that from the sport of fishing. I don't think that really has any place in fishing. I think we should all share ideas, because you could tell John, you could tell me exactly how you caught a fish on this lake. I go out there and try to replicate it, and I might not be able to do what you were doing. You might just have, like me, my hands shake a little bit. I think that helps me with finesse presentation.
Right. Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. Jeff Hendo Henderson says after he talked to Goose, they feel that they know you as a friend. So.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. I feel I know you guys as friends now too. And you know what? I feel I don't know any strangers. They're only friends I haven't met.
Correct.
I pretty much, whenever I meet somebody, I try to find something I like about them.
Up to you.
It's my goal.
Okay. Rob chiming in here saying Brock Mosley's definitely on a momentum roll.
Yes, Brock, go, man. That guy, Rob and I have had a lot of talks about this. Brock is a stud. God, he is on a roll, and actually, I'm going to have him on tomorrow.
Okay, nice. So, everybody make sure you turn into Jay's podcast tomorrow.
What I really like about Brock Mosley, he's moving towards being one of the best bass fishermen in the United States. And the guy hasn't changed. He's still very down to earth, very much talks to you. He doesn't, man, I like people like that.
Yes. There's some. No. Let's see. What else? Any other questions for Jay? The consensus here is Jay's a good guy, which we all knew.
Thank you.
And yes. My wife just asked if you were the one that was in the Air Force, and yep, you're the only one.
I was an air traffic controller over in Michigan.
Yeah.
I think I did more fishing than controlling air traffic, actually, when I was in Michigan.
I'm sorry?
I think I did a lot more fishing than controlling air traffic when I was over there in Michigan, in the Air Force.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, my military service, I saw one of my former officers was on here earlier, and she was the best officer I ever had, and we she was a helicopter pilot, and I was the communications guy for some of them, and we dealt with the ATCs a little bit, and
Sure.
I got to talking to one, and they told, the stress levels and all that. It's just ridiculous.
The stress levels. It's a difficult job. You might sit there for 6 hours and not do one thing, and all of a sudden, in a split second, all hell breaks loose, and you don't breathe for 15 minutes in a row. I mean, because you're just talking. But you lose yourself in that, and that 15 minutes flies by like half a minute, and then you're done, and you just go back to sitting down and drinking coffee.
Okay.
That's pretty much how I remember ATC. But I had more fun. They had me right on the shores of Lake St. Clair, and I was 21 years old, and I spent most of my money renting boats and going out with 16-foot luns on Lake St. Clair. And anybody who's ever been out on Lake St. Clair knows that you shouldn't be on Lake St. Clair on a 16-foot lun with a 25-horse outboard. You just shouldn't. It's a mean lake, but I caught the biggest smallmouth bass I've ever seen. Some of the biggest walleyes I've ever seen. I caught those just casting rattle traps because I only had one rattle trap. I was poor. I was a 3-striker in the Air Force, So, I didn't have a whole lot of lures, and I wasn't very fancy. I had an ugly stick and blue Kmart line.
Hey, you got out there and caught fish, so.
Tens of thousands. Then they sent me 180 miles north up to the very top end of Saginaw Bay, which was called Oscoda, and I caught salmon and steelhead and walleyes and smallmouth bass and northern pike. Just had the time. I fished almost every day of the year because they had streams where the steelhead would run through those streams all year long, and it was. My wife said she thought she had a husband until she moved to Oscoda. Then she knew she didn't have one because I was gone. Because if I wasn't fishing, I was deer hunting. It was just one of the better times I ever had in my life. Being 22 years old, and wow. And there was no stress at Selfridge because it was at Oscoda because it was a B-52 base, and B-52s are awfully slow compared to fighters. So
yeah, they're not really maneuverable.
No,
they're not evasive and.
I would clear a B-52 to land, then I'd sit there and drink my coffee and watch them land. With fighters, you clear a fighter to land, and there's 16 more of them waiting to land, and that was quite an interesting experience being at a fighter base.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Back to fishing, I think it was on Oscoda where I really finally tuned my fishing skills, because I went every single day. And I was constantly jigging or live bait rigging or doing all kinds of cool things to try to catch steelhead. And the smallmouth bass, I learned that you can catch them on crappie jigs just as easily as you can catch them on bigger jigs. It was really an experience being able to go every single day and follow the fish around all year long in the river systems.
Okay. Justin Salisbury is a friend and fellow fisherman, and he also loves the wacky rig.
Good.
I don't know if you can see the comment, so I'll read it to you. It says, just wanted to share, you can also fish wacky rig weightless deep off the back of a boat. Caught 10 pounds on Chickamauga in 3 casts in a row, about 10 feet of water, and took a nap while I was waiting for it to sink.
Exactly.
Caught a 4-pounder, 4-pounder, and 2-pounder back to back to back, while the boater had 0.
I don't think I have enough patience to be able to sit there and wait for a wacky rig to fall 10 feet.
I have some friends that'll do that, and I can't do it.
But in all fairness, I have fished tournaments as a co-angler before, and you do what you got to do when you're a co-angler.
Excuse me. And Rob wants to know, Jay, your favorite boat you have ever owned and fished out of.
Oh, that's a good question.
I was fortunate enough that there was a boat dealer in Spring Valley, Illinois, which is right next to the town that I lived to in Peru, Illinois. I got to know him really well. He had a fishing show. He had me on his fishing show. He called me one day and said, Jay, I have a 19-foot Triton with a 200-horse Evinrude on the back of it, electronics up front, electronics on the console, and I believe it was a 74-pound thrust trolling motor, a 24-volt system. And he said, I will give it to you for what I bought it for. And I went down there with my girlfriend, and he gave us a quote how much he would sell it for. He goes, this is non-negotiable, take it or leave it. and so I bought that boat, and it was a very, very fast boat. In fact, I never got it up to top speed because it just scared me.
Oh,
but it was a 19-foot Triton. It was a walleye boat, which means well, you being from New York, you probably know what a walleye boat is.
Yes.
But for you guys down south, a walleye boat has much higher gunnels to be able to take waves. And I took that thing to Lake Erie. I took that thing to Green Bay. I took that thing to the Detroit River. I drove that thing all over the place. I just loved it. So that was the favorite boat I ever had.
Nice. Yeah, don't be talking about. I'm trying to get a boat, and you're not helping the cause by saying fast and scary.
I'm careful with boats because I work for the U.S. Geological Survey, and I'm in boats all the time on the Mississippi River and the Chapalaya River down here, and up north I was on the Ohio River. I'm not the Ohio. I was on the Illinois River during the worst floods that there was on the Ohio River, and I've seen things, man.
I bet.
I've seen things, so I tend to be a lot more. Also, since I've been fishing in boats since I was 4 years old, I tend to be more careful than most people.
Sure. One of the things that I've been told several times is, if you're afraid, turn around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if your confidence isn't there, turn around.
I've been in a couple boating accidents, and they happen really fast, really, really fast. The next thing you know, your boat's flipped over, and what happened?
I have no idea. So do you guys name your boats? Like, I name my vehicles, but I think that's from my dad. He always named his vehicle girl names because they're very needy. But do you guys name your boats?
I don't name my personal boats, but when in the U.S. Geological Survey, somebody names their boats, and it's usually the top guy in the office I work for says, this is what we're going to call it.
Very cool.
It's supposed to be bad luck not to name a boat, but I don't see any reason to name a fishing boat. It's just a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob has a good thing. He says, one thing I've always said, if you respect the water in the boat, you're fine. If you're afraid, turn around.
Absolutely. You gotta respect it.
Yes.
And it's at times that there's no wind and it's flat and you're just not paying attention. That's when things happen.
Sure. I've been in a couple hairy situations up here. We have some pretty good sized water with Lake Ontario.
You too. You're on the wrong side of Lake Ontario, man. The waves get the whole stretch to come down.
Yes. And we were out and we had a 16-foot Stratos. Well, 17 foot, I'm sorry. 17 or 18-foot Stratos. And we were out fishing a tournament out of around the Koi Bay, and we were about 2-hour good drive back, and we're looking and like, well, we should probably be heading out in about 5-10 minutes. Well, that 5-10 minutes turned into seconds because the downpour came, and like I said, we were in a small boat, had a 150 on the back, and we were in 10-foot rollers. It did not take long. So we found a spot to duck into, and there were three footers in this little canal or creek that we were in, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
You know. And we called our buddy, said, "Hey, can you bring the truck and trailer over to such and such a place?" And so, we decided to not risk our life anymore.
Yeah, I've been in situations like that on Lake Erie. So yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
All right. Well, anyone else have anything for Jay they'd like to know? So I'm wondering, do you have any partners or sponsors or anything you want to talk about that's helping you with your podcast or helping you in fishing or in life?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Jim Grant from Grant Hooks. My goodness, why did I just say that? Grant Rods. Grant Rods is a company out of Arlington Heights, Illinois. Jim Grant's the owner, and he was the first guy to take an interest in me. And he asked me if I do podcasts with his pro staff. So I did podcasts with with the pro staff members that he selected. And since then, we've had a partnership, and I just love his rods. They're so sensitive. They're so light. You know, that's what I use for wacky rigging now. One of his Cuda EXTs. It's 6'6", medium action, and it's just so light and sensitive. You cast with that thing all day long. So that's my rod. Daiwa reels. I love the Daiwa reels. They're so smooth. They're so light. Vector hooks, like the hat I'm wearing. I've been with JB now for over a year. You know, his company wasn't brand new, but it was relatively new when I started, and we've had a great partnership there. Cajun Lures, that's a soft plastics company. Zach Dubois and I have worked together for a little while, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple, but Gray Goat, they make spinner baits and blade baits. I've had a great partnership with him. In fact, I talked to Alvin last night. That's about it. I'm pretty selective with who I work with, you know.
Yeah. And one of the important things is you get along with everybody that you work with. So
Absolutely, you know, when I get into work with a company, I want it to be like I'm one of the founders, you know. And these companies treat me like that. When I call them, I talk to the owner. Well, I can't talk to the owner about it. But guy would just make such great reels. I can't not work with him, you know.
sure. I understand. So I don't really have anything else to talk about tonight. Anything you would like to know?
I don't know anything about fishing, so
it doesn't have to be out fishing. I do have some.
I'm just the face.
Maybe I should just stand behind the camera on the other side and let her talk.
Yeah.
Or at least sit here. But no, any tips for us, new podcasters, or
just this is going to sound really simple, but I think it's the biggest part. Just keep doing it. Keep practicing how you say things. You know, and just get to know the people that you interview. Talk to them for 15, 20 minutes before you interview them. And kind of feel them out, see what makes them tick. And then you will get a much better interview that way, because then you'll know what kind of questions to ask them. You won't be fumbling around trying to find something to talk about. And I'm not saying you didn't do that, but, you know, when I was new, I found myself doing that. Then I found myself, when it was the first time I podcast with somebody, I'll sit there and talk to them for sometimes 20, sometimes even 30 minutes. Just trying to get to know them better so I can get a better interview that flows smoother. And I'm always looking for ways to talk more smoothly, to talk more effectively, to get to the core of what we're going to be interviewing about, and not to get off subject. You know, I'm always striving to do that as I podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
And also, you know, the thing I have to constantly be mindful. Sometimes I forget the podcast is about my guest. You know, I interject stuff about myself, but for the most part, I try to keep my conversation about them.
Mm-hmm.
and don't ever talk about politics. That's a killer.
Yeah. No, I understand that, you know, but, well, Jay, I'd like to, nope, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I haven't listened to a lot of your interviews, but the ones that I have listened to, I absolutely love how you interact with each person that you talk to, and I feel like adding those little tidbits of yourself make it flow a lot better, and then it gets the other person to talk a little bit more as well. So I do love listening to you interview other members and other people. So
Thank you. And I see in John that he's the same way. He can talk to absolutely anybody, and he enjoys talking to people. He likes people. You know, I support you, John. You're going to do well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Means a lot coming from you. So, well, I'm gonna end this here with Jay, and I want to thank Jay for being on, and everybody out there listening and taking part, asking questions. So, everybody have a good night. Take care, and we're having a special podcast on Saturday with Marcio from Italy.
Nice. That's going to be
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Good
So we're
job
going.
landing him.
Yeah, we're going from Louisiana to Italy.
Good job landing that guy, man. That's going to be interesting.
Yes, thank you very much, Jay. Everybody, take care, and have a great day.